Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Mitt Romney is back. Paul Ryan is out. Romney is in. Upside down world. My professionals, Thaddeus McCotter, WJR, the great voice of the Great Lakes and the author of Liberty Risen, and a recovering politician, and David Drucker of the Washington Examiner, covering Capitol Hill and watching politicians. I begin with Mr. Drucker because the Mitt Romney announcement today takes my breath away. This is exactly like having watched every episode of I Love Lucy and then deciding you're going to watch them again. They're funny, they're spirited, Lucy's wonderful, but what's new? David, a good evening to you. We've had this announcement in the wind for 4 days. I saw that there were stories last Friday, but I didn't take it seriously. Are people laughing? Are they telling Harold Stassen jokes? What explains this?
I don't know, John. You know, I'm right now I'm 0 for 2 for that. They'll never do it because I didn't think Jeb Bush would do it, but he jumped in early and he's been really serious about it. Now you've got Mitt Romney, who I was just sure just wouldn't run. And even like you, when I saw those reports on Friday, he told some donors, "Hey, I want to be president." I'm like, all right, I mean, trial balloon, we'll see where this goes. But you know, he was calling people. I have colleagues of mine reporting he was calling people all weekend, telling the gang they're getting back together. And look, I think that part of it has to do with not wanting to cede his place at the top of the Republican food chain. He's been the preeminent statesman, despite losing in 2012. And he actually rehabilitated himself quite nicely in 2014. Every Republican, right, left, center in the party wanted to be seen with him. And, you know, I think when you see yourself as president, it's hard to let it go. Maybe Romney thinks with an open seat, he can do what he wasn't able to do the first time he ran when there was an open seat and the second time he ran in 12.
Thaddeus, is there, as a recovering politician, you are in a place where we thought Mr. Romney was living, a recovering politician, but not. He's plunging back in. Is there an explanation, a human being explanation of Mitt Romney doing this to himself and his family one more time?
Well, I don't know what the human explanation would be. It seems like David kind of put his finger on it. Perhaps it's hard to let it go, but perhaps he also still has a passionate desire to see some of the changes that he ran on in 2012 actually implemented should he be elected in 2016. In the final analysis, I do share some of the surprise about that, and the question will become, with Romney perceived as a right-of-center, let's say moderate, and Jeb Bush perceived as a right-of-center, somewhat moderate, although that may or may not be true for either one, but that's how they're perceived. What is the right doing in the wake, David, of the announcements of Mr. Romney and the movements of Mr. Bush?
Well, look, I think that if you're you know in the further on the farther right of the party on the spectrum there, you're probably thrilled because you're thinking the more so-called establishment candidates that get in, maybe those guys will divide the vote for a change, and it gives the more conservative candidates like, you know, we presume a Ted Cruz or a Rand Paul, a better chance of winning the nomination. I don't know if all of that is true. There's still going to be a wide breadth of what I think are going to be mostly top-tier candidates that run, unlike 4 years ago. And so I think the party's in a much better position, and I don't think, you know, Mitt and Jeb getting in, you know, makes it easier for anybody else necessarily. But I think it does right now scramble the picture for Jeb Bush, just in that he's still who he is and going to have the sort of juggernaut effort that he's going to have. But now he's got more immediate competition. There are a lot of Romney people that would have been Jeb people. Of course, Romney has the same issue. There are Jeb people that would have been Romney people. So I think you know what this does is just add to the level of top-tier candidates in the field, and it makes it much more interesting.
Yes, it's a rich choice, but let's press this. Let's talk process here. The Romney campaign, the messaging was abysmal. The staff only talked to itself and didn't even talk to itself all the time. I think they didn't take notes on themselves. The ability to flummox the big data was matched only by Obamacare. Good heavens. From Romney. And the whole idea was that you, David, the media, you were the enemy camp. That's the way they treated you. That's the Romney campaign. Yes, he got 60 million votes, but he abused everybody who wanted to cover the campaign, and he represented an antique of a campaign. He campaigned wonderfully for 1998.
Yeah, I'm going to make this real simple, John. You bring up a lot of good points. I'll start with one piece of good news for Romney, and then we'll get to the rest, and it's all bad news. The one piece of good news is since he ran, the Republican Party operation on its own has developed big data that works, at least as far as we could see through the 2014 campaign. So he doesn't have to create something again that doesn't work and mess that up. But everything else, he needs to show that he can fix it. And so to be real crass about it, I want to know how many years of tax returns he's willing to release.
Right, all 10. All 10. We want all 10 now. We're not even going to wait. They got to be all 10 tomorrow.
Right, exactly. Because that's going to tell you, first of all, the level of political understanding that he has and how bad does he want it. The other thing is that he ran a campaign that was all about him being a Mr. Fix-It artist without emphasizing why he was running and exactly what he wanted to fix and how he wanted to fix it. This whole idea that he's a competent, good CEO is all well and good, but voters want to know what you're about and what you plan to do. And then if you're good at fixing things, I mean, all the better. It's an advantage. And if he runs the same kind of I'm competent and I can turn the country around without explaining what it is that motivates him and how he plans to turn it around, then it's the same old thing.
Thaddeus, I call upon your memory of how Mr. Romney's campaign treated Michigan, among other states, but certainly a critical one because that was a state that could have been his sponsor if he'd stopped moving from Michigan to California to Massachusetts, and I don't know where he thinks he lives now, probably one of the offshore islands. How did he treat Michigan? I'm going to fix you, like there's something wrong with me and I need Romney? Or did he have a message that made sense?
Well, I think it's very hard for any Republican to message Michigan on a statewide basis. We saw that in 2014. I guess the question really that I have for David is, he kind of touched on it, when you talk about top-tier candidates, some of the charisma that was provided by Barack Obama in 2008 was based upon the fact that he was new. To use Mr. Batchelor's I Love Lucy analogy, this was a new sitcom nobody'd seen before. It wasn't a rerun. The Republican Party, doesn't it run the risk of looking like it's already portrayed as the party that can't get with the present, let alone the future? Doesn't it start to further complicate the image of the Republican Party as the party of the past if you keep having people who've run before running again?
I think it does, and I think that's why I had long said that even though, to take Jeb Bush for a minute, even though somebody like Jeb Bush is probably a very good candidate, who probably would make a fine president, the party would probably be better off if somebody fresher and a little bit newer on the scene was the party's nominee. And there's still a good chance that that's going to happen for so many reasons. But I think, it's part of the Republican Party's challenge is to present somebody who is forward-thinking but also just fresher. I think that would help the party immensely, figuring that they know how to run a campaign and can appeal to voters, which, let's not forget, matters. And obviously, if it's Romney or even Jeb Bush, that's a harder sell. And if Hillary Clinton is the nominee, it takes away a major advantage they might have, which is we're new and we're prepared for the future. And they went back to the future to 1996 or 98 or whatever, and that's all they've got.
The new. You mean Scott Walker new, Rand Paul new. That's what you mean new. You don't mean a new candidate we haven't heard of yet.
No, I just mean somebody that's newer and might help define the Republican Party in the 21st century. And sometimes it is a matter of straight image and somebody that's fresh. I think that helped Obama in 2008 against Hillary Clinton. I think that was a big factor. But I think for the Republican Party, being able to develop a new leader of the party that can carry it forward is really important because the party is still in so many ways caught in the Reagan vortex. Everybody still quotes him, everybody still claims to be like him, and so many voters only think of him as some guy they read about in a history book because he was last in office 30 years ago, and he doesn't resonate anymore. And the Republican Party it can keep the values, but it needs to redefine them for the 21st century and redefine who people think of as the head of the party.
Well, David, it gets better. The Republican right is trying to bring back Silent Cal Coolidge to do their messaging.
Yeah, well, look, those are think tanks, and they can do what they want. But I think whether you look at, I don't care who it is in this regard, but whether it's Scott Walker or Chris Christie or Marco Rubio or anybody that's of the new Republican era that burst onto the scene only in the last 5 to 10 years, something like that, even the last 15 years, and wasn't already viewed as being a part of the guard that sort of went out in the 2006 and 2008 sweeps, I think that's what the party needs.
David Drucker of Washington Examiner, Thaddeus McCotter, WJR. When we come back, we're going to turn to real-time politics because there was a vote in the Senate today. Were you aware of that? About Keystone XL Pipeline. Were you aware of that? And there were more than 60 votes. What does that mean for President Obama, who I have reason to believe is not in Paris tonight? I'm John Batchelor.